This is the best iPhone. Not the Pro, not the Pro Max, this guy, which I'm recording with the selfie camera right now. And in fact, I'm going to record this entire review on the iPhone 17, as you can see here. But then you're thinking, hang on, how is he recording this if he's got the 17 in his hand? Well, that's because this is the iPhone Air, which has the exact same main camera as the 17, minus the ultra-wide, of course. And while I do genuinely love the iPhone Air, it's more expensive, $999 versus $799. You also only get a single camera rather than two cameras, single speaker, stereo speakers, and the battery doesn't last as long. So for my money, this is the best new iPhone. And let me tell you why. I mean, what's not to like? They've added the 120Hz ProMotion, finally. We've been asking for this for years. They've doubled the base storage to 256 gigabytes. It also gets the new, much improved center stage selfie camera, which is also exactly the same as the Pros. Plus, they've upgraded the ultra-wide camera. It's now 48 megapixels. Previously, it was 12. They've made the screen a touch bigger. It's now 6.3 inches, and also brighter, less reflective, and more scratch resistant. It has this new Ceramic Shield 2. Also, underrated feature, I would say, it's significantly lighter than the same size 17 Pro. We're talking 177 grams versus 204. And of course, you're getting the camera control, which I never really use, except to maybe double press to open the camera app. We also have the action button, which I've assigned to open a ChatGPT conversation, highly recommend. And of course, it has all the Apple Intelligence stuff that we've all kind of just, well, forgotten about and moved on with.
What's the best iPhone?
The iPhone 17 also gets the new A19 chip, which in my tests is actually faster than last year's flagship A18 Pro. We get a very nice bump to battery life, plus they've doubled the wired charging speed to 40 watts, along with the same 25-watt wireless MagSafe. There's probably even more, but that's the main stuff, and that is a massive upgrade, and it's the same price, well, at least here in the UK and US, at $799. So that's my pitch for why the 17 makes the most sense. Yes, it's not as sexy as the Air, it's not as shouty, look at me as the new Pros, especially in this cosmic orange, which I think we're all kind of over now. The 17 isn't the most exciting looking, but it's a great size. I still think it looks good, and I know a lot of people prefer this over the new Plateau on the Pros.
But it's immediately obvious that this less expensive, cheaper iPhone 17 passes my durability test with flying colors.
And it comes in some lovely colors. I've got the sage one here, but there's also a very tasty lavender, there's a mist blue, a white, and a black option, which you can't even get on the Pros anymore. But hold up, let's talk about the Pros. Is it actually worth paying $300 more to get a Pro or $400 more for a Pro Max? What are we actually missing out on by going with a 17, and is it a big deal? Well, for starters, there's no 17 Plus this year, so while the screen has been bumped from 6.1 to 6.3 inches, if you want a proper big screen experience, now your only option is to buy the Pro Max with its giant 6.9 inch screen. They also get the more powerful A19 Pro chip, plus 12 gigs of RAM rather than 8. They're also the first iPhones to use a vapor chamber to help with cooling. They get better speakers, higher storage options, the USB-C port's faster, although that's only really useful for transferring ProRes files, which you can't shoot on the regular 17 anyway. And of course, better cameras, with the third lens for the telephoto, a bigger sensor for the main camera. And of course, while this entire review is being shot on the 17, or the Air, because it has the same main camera, we do miss out on things like log, ProRes, ProRAW, and I would love to have been shooting all this in log so I can make it look a little bit less iPhone-y. I think being able to shoot in log is one of the biggest advantages of going for a Pro. Oh, and of course you can't shoot 4K 120 with the regular phones. That's also a Pro feature. I doubt you'd use it that often, but if you want some super sexy slow-mo shots, then, you know, being able to shoot 4K 120, ProRes, RAW, Max in Apple Log 2 on the Pro phones. I think for most of us, the main reason to spend the extra money to get a Pro is for the better cameras, the third telephoto lens, also the bigger sensors with the main camera. But let's do a little blind test just to start with. Can you tell me which one's shot on the iPhone 17 and which one's on the iPhone 17 Pro? This is using the main camera. So you can see I put the 17 on the right, the Pro on the left. Did you get it right? I've got to say, I've been using these new iPhones, all of them, for the past few weeks, and I've been thoroughly impressed just by the main lens, even on the 17 and the Air. There really isn't much of a distinction. Once you then bump up to 4X and beyond, it does become pretty clear. And also, you know, trickier low light nighttime shots where the Pro does come into its own. There is definitely a bit more detail, a bit more natural colors when using the main camera in low light. So yes, the Pros do offer better cameras, but just have a look at some of these shots I've taken on the 17, because in my book, I don't think you'll find a better all-round camera at this price point. And particularly if you play around with the photography styles, that really helps give your shots a bit more personality. And assuming you don't regularly want to zoom into 4 times and beyond and want to have a photo that you can, post on your socials, you're absolutely fine with a 17's camera. The rear cameras aren't a major step up from last year's 16, there is a little bit more detail in the ultra-wide shots. And if I punch right in on these photos I took at the Royal Albert Hall in very tricky lighting, there is definitely less noise on the 17. It's an evolution rather than a revolution, as the cliche goes, but really the big deal with this year's camera is the one on the front, this new 18 megapixel center stage. So this year the selfie is high resolution, a much bigger sensor, a square sensor, which means you can take your landscape and vertical shots from the same orientation. You can do everything while holding it vertically. Also much improved stabilization for the selfie camera. And here I am on a beach in Hawaii. And while this was shot on the iPhone Pros to demonstrate the difference versus last year, as I say, all new iPhones share the exact same selfie camera. And we get this, dual capture for the first time on an iPhone, which is a little bit limiting compared to, say, what we get on the Samsung phones. You can move the little guy around here, but you can't, say, split screen it. It also doesn't save the file separately, so this is baked in, and you're limited to 4K 30 rather than 4K 60 video. But it's still a nice little feature to have, and exclusive to the new iPhones. Do you know what I've just noticed, going between the Air and the 17, is that the Air doesn't have cinematic video mode. I can't understand it. It just doesn't have it. It's not an option, but it is on the 17. I want to talk about this screen though, because it's one of the biggest updates we've had to the base iPhones in, well, donkey's years. As I say, ProMotion is the same 1 to 120 Hz refresh rate as the Pro phones. And if I put it side by side with last year's 16, watching this video, which is shot at 60 frames per second, you're not going to be able to tell. In real life though, it feels so much smoother. And going back to a 60 Hz display like the MacBook Air, like the older iPhones, it does feel a bit slow. But since the new iPhone 17 has the same Ceramic Shield 2 screen as the Pro models, as the Air, it also comes with this improved anti-reflective coating, which I would say is about halfway to the best-in-class Galaxy S25 Ultra. Apple say it reduces reflections by about 30%, and you can see with this very creepy shot of my face in the reflection of the 16 and the 17, it's definitely darker on the right. Apple's also bumped the peak brightness, so that's when it goes into that sort of crazy outdoor sun mode, from 2000 nits to 3000. The crazy thing to me though is, except for the size of the screen, in all other ways, the cheapest iPhone 17 is just as good as the most expensive 17 Pro Max. So the iPhone 17 gets the A19 chip, which is the less powerful, slightly less efficient version of the A19 Pro that comes in the Air, although that's a cut down version, and the full fat version you get in the Pro and the Pro Max. But quite honestly, except for some abstract future proofing or the fact that we're missing out on some of the higher end camera features, in terms of real world everyday performance, I cannot tell a difference between the 17 and the 17 Pro Max. They are all so ridiculously fast. Cameraman Pete, come around, let me show you this. You've got the 16 Pro Max, so last year's flagship, the 17 Pro Max. The main difference in terms of the specs, you've got the A18 Pro, A19, A19 Pro. Also, the Air Pro and Pro Max have 12 gigs of memory, these both have 8. But let me just show you the results from this Geekbench test, because the 17 is faster than last year's flagship, only by sort of 10% multi-core, 1 or 2% in single core, and the 17 Pro Max does take it a step further, but that is incredible to me. And then in terms of the graphics, look at that, it's about 15% uptick on the 17 versus the 16 Pro Max, and then if we come over to the new 17 Pro Max, you can see the A19 Pro really does go a step further in terms of graphics. This is just one very simple test, but it's crazy to me that the iPhone 17, the cheapest of the new phones, is faster than the top of the line flagship from last year. And it lasts longer. The 17, according to Apple's numbers, I think their sort of video stream test goes up from like 22 hours to 30 hours, sort of suggesting a 35% bump in battery life. That's not quite my real world experience, but it is still definitely a step up over last year. I actually ran 14, 15, 16, 16E and the 17 in like a 10-hour YouTube stream test, and it lasted about 10 to 15% longer. So a nice little bump, especially when it's also a faster phone and with a bigger screen as well. But if you haven't seen it already, let me just show you the results from my big battery test video with all the new iPhone 17s and last year's flagship Pro Max. And while predictably the Air came last, the 17 only lasted 10 minutes longer in this pretty intensive test. And actually, in terms of battery life, the jump from the 17 to the 17 Pro was quite significant. So I think for me, the main reason to spend the extra $300 on the Pro would be for the better battery life and the slightly improved cameras. A bit of a deal breaker for me with the Air is the single speaker. It's fine, but it's tinnier. It sounds significantly worse than any other iPhone 17. It's only coming a little bit from one side, the earpiece speaker. So the jump from the Air to the 17, the base cheapest one, is quite a step up in terms of the speaker. The Pro and the Pro Max do sound better. There's like a more richness, a better bass to them. If I was going to be really pretentious, I'd say it's a wider sound stage, but no, they do sound a bit better. The Air kind of sucks for the speakers. So let me get this straight. It's a faster, brighter, tougher screen. We have much improved performance, better cameras front and back. They've doubled the base storage, and realistically 256 gigs is plenty for most of us. It's the same price as before, and it lasts longer. So that is the new iPhone 17, and I think we can all agree this is by far the best value iPhone. I mean, the Air is nicer, the Pros are better, but for $799, this is the one to get. But what do you think? Have you bought a new iPhone? Let me know what you make of it in the comments below, and if so, which one did you go for? Also, let me know how this video looked. As I say, 99.5% was shot on the 17 or the Air. Was it okay? Can I ditch my A7S III camera? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chap.